Good morning and a warm welcome, Sage, for Kalkine TV here, reporting to you live from Sydney. And you're watching the Global Markets Roundup. Let's dive into some of the key highlights and happenings from yesterday, starting with the US market. And the benchmark US indices closed flat on Wednesday, October 13th, after government data showed inflation rose in September, increasing the possibility of stimulus tapering sooner than expected. And the S&P 500 was up 0.30%. The Dow Jones stayed flat at 34,377.81, while the Nasdaq Composite Index rose 0.73% and the small cap Russell 2000 rose 0.34%. The US Consumer Price Index rose by 0.4% in September after rising by 0.3% in August. And on an annual basis, CPI jumped 5.4% through September, while the core CPI rose 0.2% in September as well. Food prices rose 0.9% month over month in September, and the Labor Department data showed on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic has expressed concerns over the rising inflation. His comments come after the Fed released its minutes from its September meeting that supported withdrawing stimulus by mid-November or mid-December. Basic materials, technology and utility stocks led the gains on the S&P 500 index on Wednesday. 9 of the 11 index segments stayed in the green, and the financial and energy stocks were the bottom movers. And let's move on now to the futures and commodities. Gold futures were up 1.97% and silver increased by 2.64%, while copper rose 3.80%. And meanwhile, the Brent oil futures increased by 0.01% and WTI crude was down 0.06%. And taking a look over the bond market now, the 30-year Treasury bond yields were down 3.56%, while the 10-year bond yields declined as well, 2.63%. US dollar futures index decreased by 0.54%. And now it's time for a small break, but stay tuned. I'll be back with the Asian and Australian markets after this.
Tune in to get the latest information.
Whether it's about market movements or the currency graph,
sectoral coverage or industry news.
We cover it all on our news segments.
Be on top of the latest news
with Kalkine TV.
Welcome back, Sage here. You're watching the Global Markets Roundup by Kalkine TV. And European stocks rose on Wednesday as upbeat earnings forecasts from German software group SAP and robust quarterly sales from French luxury goods maker LVMH helped smooth the worries about inflation. And after some weakness at the open, the Pan-European Stock 600 index hit the 2-week high and closed up 0.7%, as did the German DAX. And France's CAC 40 rose 0.8%. UK shares briefly returned to positive region, with the benchmark FTSE 100 turning green after the leading stock indices on Wall Street jumped marginally, with Nasdaq Composite leading the charge. And according to the latest data available with the London Stock Exchange, the headline FTSE 100 was trading up 0.17% from the previous close, while FTSE 250 was oscillating 0.77% higher from the last close. Japanese shares fell on Wednesday as investors awaited US consumer price data due later in the day, while the department store major J-Front Retailing 3086T led gains in its peers after posting positive earnings amid hopes of economic reopening. And the Nikkei average slipped 0.32%, while the broader topics lost 0.45%. And China's stocks ended higher on Wednesday, lifted by consumer and technology stocks as better than expected domestic trade data slowed down the fears fanned by power crunch and Evergrande's debt crisis. And the blue chip CSI 300 index rose 1.2%, while the Shanghai Composite Index gained 0.4%. South Korean shares rose on Wednesday after 2 consecutive sessions of declines. And as strong Chinese trade data and a positive local jobs report helped boost the investor sentiment. And the Korean won strengthened, while the benchmark bond yield fell. And the benchmark Kospi rose 28.03 points, or 0.96%. The Australian shares are set to rise on Thursday, likely helped by gains in the domestic gold and technology stocks on the back of firm bullion prices. And in the overnight trade, Wall Street also finished higher, led by gains in the big growth stocks and tech-heavy Nasdaq. The ASX 200 fell 0.1% in the previous session on Wednesday. And in the bond markets, the US yield curve was flattened by bets of tighter monetary policy, and the Australian dollar was consolidating broad gains on Wednesday as strength on global commodity prices and rising bond yields gave it a leg up on the yen and euro, where most yields are still sub-zero. And that helped lift the Aussie dollar 1.7% for the week so far, up to 83.40 yen after hitting a 3-month top of 83.79 overnight. And gold prices were boosted due to weaknesses in the US dollar and bond yields. Spot gold rose 1.9%, while US gold futures climbed 1.92%. And the iron ore prices fell following a formal announcement on the upcoming winter restrictions by China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology. And thank you for joining us in the report. That's all for now. Keep watching Kalkine TV for more market updates. Sage signing off.